Serbia has for years been a volatile democracy, torn between its own illiberalism, Russian influence, and the appeal of the European Union. Now, it seems, Serbian people have had enough. But will Aleksandar Vucic quash their civil disobedience? Stay with me to find out, here on Wide the View. And I'm your host, Mateusz Mazzini. Good evening. Our main story tonight takes us to Belgrade, a city seemingly far away from the current geopolitical spotlight, yet actually one of the key battlefields between democracy and authoritarianism. The country has seen democratic backsliding for years. Some would even argue that Serbia never became a consolidated democracy following the bloody conflict of the 1990s. Serbian people are no strangers to protesting. They have taken to the streets repeatedly over corruption, fraud, lack of transparency, cost of living, and different governmental policies. But the recent wave of protests feels different, both for the people and for the government. Hundreds of thousands have marched, demanding change. Authorities asked Moscow to help manage the protests. Accusations emerged over the use of sonic weapons against citizens. So, what is really going on in Serbia? We tried to find out in our report.
The current crisis in Serbia can be traced back to November 2024. The collapse of a railway station structure in Novi Sad left 16 people dead and sparked mass protests across the country. Initially, these were student-led, but other parts of society quickly joined in. The government promised to launch an investigation into the collapse, but it has not yet yielded any results. Protesters accused politicians of secret dealings with a Chinese contractor, which they deemed responsible for the crash. Their discontent quickly escalated, and protesters have expressed mass disapproval of the current authorities' policies. By April, vigils and demonstrations were held in over 400 locations across the country. University departments, high schools, and some public offices were occupied and remain blocked to this day. The Serbian Progressive Party, which has governed Serbia since 2012, has not remained passive in the face of the protests. It has tried to dismantle societal resistance, sometimes using force. March 15th saw a dramatic showdown. During the protests in Belgrade, a major sound wave went through the crowd. Opposition and civil society leaders accused the government of deploying a sonic weapon against its citizens. Party officials were later pressed by the media, but denied owning these types of weapons in the first place. Later, reports surfaced of FSB officials investigating the crowds. Protests are still ongoing across the country. Polls suggest that the current opposition has outperformed the government. Young Serbs express overwhelming support for their country's EU membership. It seems that the future of Serbian democracy is being decided as we speak.
Will Serbia be forever torn between Russia and the European Union? What is the role of Moscow in keeping Aleksandar Vucic in power? And did the Serbian government really deploy a sonic weapon on its own people? No one is better equipped to answer these questions than the people following these events on the ground. I'm pleased to say, joining me tonight are Gorana Andric, executive editor at Balkan Investigative Reporting Network Serbia, and Vjosa Cerkini, reporter at Deutsche Welle. Good evening both, and welcome to Wide the View.
Good evening.
Gorana, let's start from the beginning, chronologically. The protests began in November of 2024 after a collapse of a structured part of the railway station in Novi Sad. How did they evolve into a month-long protest that actually mobilizes big parts of the civil society in Serbia?
These protests do have a background in their culmination of number of protests that have shook Serbia in the recent years. In 2023 and 2024, we had a series of protests that were quite massive in numbers. The first started in May 2023 after a student, a 13-year-old boy, killed pupils in elementary school in Belgrade, which citizens actually blamed on cultural violence that has gripped the country. So these were the first mass protests. Then they were followed by the protests against lithium mining in Serbia. And finally, after this tragedy in Novi Sad, I think that civil society just simply couldn't exploded, let's say, in those words, exploded in dissatisfaction with the government. The thing with Novi Sad tragedy is that it was, unlike other protests, this was the protests because of the tragedy that was clearly, held mark of government's responsibility. So the railway station was just reopened, it was refurbished, and it killed 16 people in the collapse. So people in this time they could clearly see the connection between potential corruption and the tragedy that happened. So what started as a vigil for the victims soon erupted into a protest in Novi Sad, and students joined. They joined by blocking roads for, at start, 15 minutes on major crossroads in Belgrade and Novi Sad and Niš, just to kind of mark and pay respect to the victims. Just a couple of weeks later, there were attacks on the students and high school pupils across Serbia. What sparked the mass protests and why the students kind of involved and started leading the protests is the attack on the students of dramatic arts in Belgrade. They were attacked by the people who were closely linked to Serbian Progressive Party. After the few students were injured during the vigil, the students started organizing mass protests.
So, Gorana, I'm gonna jump on this real quick, and thank you very much for this background. We understand where this is coming from, but you mentioned a very important word in this context, which is obviously corruption and lack of government accountability. And on that note, I want to move to you, Vjosa, and fast forward to end of April 2025. The civil society in Serbia is still very much buzzing. So if you could tell us, what are the protests about now?
The protests now are continuing exactly as even Gorana mentioned. They started because of this case in Novi Sad, and they are the young people, the students are against corruption or protesting against the case, and also they are tired of things going on the wrong way, and students are now not directly attacking Vucic as a person, but everything that he has built up and brought under his control. And with their engagement and persistence in the recent months, the students have now clearly shown that they want change in the country. And somehow all of the protests that we are seeing even now, all this has led to a weakening of both, for example, Alexander Vucic's power and the coalition around the Serbian Progressive Party, they are just they want basically to fight for changes like corruption. They want a rule of law in the country, and they want changes in the country. This is the reason why they are definitely continuing to protest all over the place in Serbia.
That is actually quite an extensive list of demands: fighting corruption, having accountability, having rule of law. A lot is going on in here. But coming back to you, Gorana, we know the student part of this equation. What has been the response of the Serbian government? Because it wasn't immediately violent, was it?
Yes, at first, because one of the demands of students' demands is that institutions that the institutions themselves start doing their job according to the law. Why is that this demand extremely important in Serbia? Because Serbian President Aleksandar Vucic has for years is holding the all executive and all other power in the country in his own hands. So one of their demands was for institutions like prosecution to investigate the collapse, to investigate the case, potential corruption, and obviously prosecute people who are responsible. At start, the government responded by trying to open a path for some sort of a negotiations with the students that would obviously be led by Vucic. Students simply refused, saying that he has no jurisdiction to discuss these matters and be involved in the process, judiciary processes. So, and this lasted throughout, I think, November and December. We have seen in January that the government resigned. It was also under the pressure of the protests. Prime Minister resigned, some ministers resigned just after the tragedy. But basically for months we have seen that the government has not been using force against the protesters. I believe that the reason for their refrain to actually use violence, which they did use in previous years, is that these protests do enjoy mass popularity, and the students have been perceived by basically almost all elements of society as kind of a pure leader that and their demands for long have not been political. So much of the society, and even those who would not necessarily support opposition, did supported students. So in that sense, I think that the government calculated that violence against these children, as most Serbian media is referring to the students, would be kind of a political suicide for the government.
Absolutely. But on that note, because you have spoken extensively on the use of violence and lack of this, but there's one particular caveat, staying with you, Gorana, that actually attracts a lot of international attention. It's the case of the supposed use of a sonic weapon against the demonstrators. What was that about?
We still do not have any official conclusion, no official information on what happened. Serbian government denied using sonic weapons on its citizens. Basically, use of sonic weapons in Serbia is illegal. So they have denied at first that they even own sonic weapons, later confirming that obviously they do. But still the government is maintaining the line that they haven't used sonic weapon. But what we have seen, and most of the world by now has seen, is that there was a huge sound wave that hit thousands of people on the evening of March 15th. Serbian government trying to kind of elaborate that they will investigate the case. They've said that they will call FBI and FSB to investigate, but I think that Serbian public is actually, at this point, they are putting their hopes that European Court of Human Rights will basically force Serbian government to come clean on what happened that night.
This is still an ongoing story, so we will be most certainly coming back to this supposed sonic blast. But now I wanted to move to you, Vjosa, and perhaps move away a little bit from the very spotlight of these protests and talk about the wider politics of Serbia. We see right now on the screen the current opinion polls giving a joint hypothetical list of the opposition parties an advantage over the current government. So, Vjosa, is the change of government in Serbia actually likely?
As for the united opposition, I'm not sure how much it can contribute, since Serbian students have distanced themselves basically for any cooperation with the support of the opposition parties. But we need just to put the fact, as I mentioned even before, that through the protests and through the persistence of the young people in Serbia in the recent months, definitely Aleksandar Vucic and also the Serbian Progressive Party, they lost a lot of voters. And in order to prove that, even that since research that was conducted confirms that the parties of approval ratings have dropped significantly. And this is a fact that we can see basically that Alexander Vucic lost a lot of percentage of the voters, but we need just to go back to the last elections that was in 2023 in Serbia, where Vucic's party came close to an outright majority with 46%, and the largest opposition party received only half of that. And the next two, for example, got 6.5% and 5% respectively. So even if they are united, Vucic would still be about 10% ahead, unless the protest led to a shift in voter behavior. So conducted researches are showing that Vucic's party lost percentage by voters, but even in the next elections, for example, they're going to be able to win again the elections. These are the facts on the ground right now in Serbia.
This is a very clear and sharp analysis on your behalf. So very quickly, since I have you already here, what has been the European Union's response to the recent developments in Serbia?
The European Union, they support, we saw even the Serbian students that they went by bikes to Munich in Germany, and they continued even to other countries, and they got a lot of support by Europeans. But in this situation, the EU is supporting Serbia, but not very much. So I think even the young students, they are continuing to protest just because they feel that things should be changed. Even that, for example, the ex Prime Minister of Serbia resigned months ago. The young people are not satisfied with these changes, so they for that reason they still do that. They continue the protest in order to achieve what they want, basically the change. But now what we see from the policy of EU is that they support that, but not till now they didn't achieve anything, basically. What is really important also to mention is, for example, even the Orthodox Church, they visited Russia recently, and even there, for example, the representative of the Orthodox Church in Russia, they didn't support the students and the protests. So we have also in Serbia a situation that we have the young people against the politicians and the policy that is right now in the country, but at the same time we have the Orthodox Church that don't support that, and of course they gave a lesson to Alexander Vucic that they should change something in order to stop the protests.
Well, Alexander Vucic himself has said that the government has heard the message. Not sure whether that would translate into anything. But since you've mentioned that, Vjosa, let's address the big elephant in the room. Gorana, a question to you. Russian involvement. You've mentioned yourself government bringing FSB experts to try to investigate what was happening both in Novi Sad and during the protests. But how much is Russia present and how active is Russia in Serbian politics and also in keeping Vucic and his government in power?
As Vjosa mentioned, Vucic does enjoy significant support in the country. However, he is also winning the elections, especially in Belgrade, also due to issues with election irregularities. We have a voting list that needs to be sorted. There are a number of issues with vote buying and so on and so on. So Vucic does not necessarily need Russia to stay in power. he has developed his own mechanisms of controlling the media, the party finances, and everything else that he needs to hold the grip on power in the country. But when we are talking about Russian influence in Serbia, yes, Belgrade, actually, Vucic said that he had invited FSB to investigate the alleged use of sonic weapon in Belgrade, but the government also actually published some sort of a report allegedly made by FSB. However, a quick look into this document reveals it was not originally written in Russian. It has letters that do not exist in Russian language. The structure of the sentences is not natural for Russian natives. So it is not clear if FSB is actually participating or it's just a Serbian government a line for domestic public. So in that sense, I'm not sure about FSB involvement in this investigation. But when we are talking about relations with Russia, it is important to say that while Russia does not have that much financial influence, like China, for example, that is pouring enormous amounts of money in Serbia, it does. Moscow is enjoying a great popularity in the country. And in that sense, this leverage of close ties with Moscow is important for Vucic. We've seen in recent years, and even with this government, that some of the key people who are holding key positions in the government are people who would likely be also approved by Moscow. When I'm saying this, I'm talking primarily about, for example, Alexander Vulin. Alexander Vulin has close ties with Kremlin. For years he was holding the top positions in security sector. He was defense minister, he was interior minister, he was the head of a security agency. Vulin, whom we can see now on screen, Vulin is not in this government, but however, his close associate Miloš Andric, who worked for the police previously, has now been appointed as chief of cabinet of the new prime minister who was just appointed. So I would say that I think that for Belgrade, maintaining relations with Moscow is very fruitful in terms of popularity. Yeah, popularity in the country, and obviously maintaining good relations with a very important and powerful state.
It seems that the ties between Belgrade and Moscow are actually sometimes even much stronger than we see from the outside of the country. The protests in Serbia have proven to be long-lasting, as you both know, and students incredibly resilient. If they've been on the streets for months now, they're quite likely to continue protesting even longer, which means a lot in Serbia is hopefully still yet to be decided. Gorana Andric and Vjosa Cerkini were our guests tonight. Thank you both and have a good evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Serbians have made it clear they want change. Not soon, not in the future, but now. And they are likely to get it. That's for sure. But it's not certain if it will actually be for the better, because Alexander Vucic does not seem willing to give in to their demands. This crisis will only escalate, but its ending remains unwritten. Thank you for being with us tonight. Next week, as the conclave in Rome approaches, we will reflect upon the political legacy of Pope Francis. Make sure you're with us next Thursday, follow us on YouTube, and have a good evening.